Sunny day. Daddy Pig was filming his family with a new wide-angle phone. He looked at the screen. At the very edge of the frame, a tall, dark figure was visible. Daddy showed Peppa the photo. The picture was normal, but at the edge, there was a sharp, blurry spot with a couple of bright red dots. He looked at the screen again. The entire screen was filled with a huge, distorted face. Pale, rubbery skin, a huge mouth with tiny, sharp teeth, red eyes. Daddy, horrified, dropped the phone. On the shattered screen appeared the same creepy face, laughing. Black, oily liquid was flowing from the screen. The family froze, looking toward the forest. A tall figure, very thin, long limbs like a spider's, an oversized head with red eyes and a wide grin. Black liquid dripped from its hands onto the grass. The family ran home. The figure took its first step. A black puddle from the broken phone began to grow rapidly. Daddy slammed the front door shut. Peppa and George pressed against Daddy. The terrifying face of the monster was in the window. Black liquid that Daddy accidentally stepped in quickly spread across the living room floor. It contained bubbles and shadows as if something alive was inside. Daddy pulled the children toward the basement stairs. Black liquid had already covered half of the floor. George tripped. Daddy caught him. From the stairs, black liquid was flowing down. It's dark. Only light from the open door upstairs illuminated part of the basement. The family looked upward. From the darkness of the basement came an amorphous shape made of black liquid with a dozen red eyes. This is the core of the monster forming from the liquid. The family pressed against the far wall of the basement. The liquid monster and spider figure cornered them. The door upstairs slammed shut with a bang. Absolute horror and awareness of impending doom. Black liquid already surrounded their feet. The monsters nearly loomed over them. Light from under the door flickered out. From beneath the door, thick black smoke slowly crawled out. In the smoke, two red eyes flashed for a moment and then went out. Peppa put on an old record. The cheerful melody suddenly crackled and slowed down. Old songs remember more than words. Shadows stretched toward Peppa. On the TV, the silhouette of Mr. Melodious. A whisper from the speaker.
Peppa, George, onto the stage.
Black tar flows from the speaker. A thud from above. Child's room. The squeak of toys. A tentacle of tar burst out of the speaker. Peppa jumped back. The shadow of the turntable grew up to the ceiling in the shape of Melodious. The conductor calls the orchestra. Peppa ran upstairs. Tar was chasing her. The stairs rippled like water. Shadows of the railing. Tentacles. On the landing, Peppa looked back. Below stood Melodious. A flick of his spike. Drops of tar dripped from above. On the steps, distorted notes. Peppa burst into the nursery. Slammed the door shut. Suddenly, a knock sounded. A refuge. Or a stage. George froze. Boys jerked in sync. Wallpaper. Pulsating notes. The ceiling. Hanging tentacles. George turned around. Black eyes. A mechanical smile. From his mouth, a distorted hum. Boys marched toward Peppa. The teddy bear clicked its jaws. Everyone in formation. The door opened. A ghostly mom. Her face blurred. Her mouth a howling melody. The conductor is pleased with new voices. Peppa rushed toward the door. Mom grabbed her with tentacle-like hands. George stood up and pulled Peppa inside as toys surrounded them. Tar sealed the window, the staircase, nursery walls, sheet music stands. The ceiling presses down. The conductor found his soloists. Tar bound Peppa tight. Melodious bowed deeply. Hollow eye sockets, crimson light. Melodious waved his spine. Mom and George opened their mouths, and a deafening howl erupted. Peppa twitched in rhythm. Tar covered her eyes. An endless game began. The family was walking along an empty shoreline. Peppa and George were collecting shells. The white beam of the lighthouse slid across the shore. It suddenly turned bright red. The beam fell onto the sand a meter away from George. The spot of sand under the beam instantly blackened. A vortex formed. The sand hissed as it was drawn downward. Tentacles burst out of the vortex. They resembled crystals, but were flexible and sticky. The tentacles reached toward George. One wrapped around his ankle. George screamed. He tried to pull his leg away. The lighthouse began to blink chaotically. The beam holding George grew brighter. George stopped resisting. His eyes became glazed over. He walked toward the vortex with mechanical steps. Dad and Mom rushed toward George. Their movements suddenly slowed down. The skin on their their faces started to lose color, turning gray. Peppa ran after them, shouting. The red lighthouse beam found Dad and Mom. It trembled over them. The vortex expanded. Black tentacles stretched toward new victims. Peppa overtook her parents, rushing toward the lighthouse staircase. She had to stop the light. The red beam slid after her, striking the nearby cliff. Peppa burst into the round room at the top. A giant lens of the lighthouse occupied one wall. In the center stood a control panel with an old handle. In the corner, blending with shadows, sat the keeper. His face was hidden beneath a hood. The keeper muttered softly. His voice was hoarse like the sound of surf in a shell. Peppa ran up to the control panel. Suddenly, the keeper lifted his head sharply. Shadows in the room thickened around him. Don't turn off the light. Peppa pulled on the handle with all her might. The keeper lunged at her. Shadows behind him stretched out like tentacles. The blood-red lighthouse beam went out. Darkness reigned for a moment. Then the beam flared back to life, blindingly black. Not light, but absence of light ripping through the night from the lens. Peppa ran out onto a narrow balcony surrounding the room. The black beam struck down at the shore below. She looked down. On the beach, in the center of the black beam, stood Dad, Mom, and George, their figures faintly glowing with a dull gray light. A huge black vortex pulsed on the sand beneath them. Black tentacles burst from the vortex. They wrapped around Dad's, Mom's, and George's legs, pulling downward. Suddenly, the lighthouse's red beam jerked sharply, aiming directly at Peppa on the balcony above her. Shadows on the balcony thickened. They stretched out from corners toward Peppa. In Peppa's house, the paintings on the walls began to disappear. Instead of bright images, there were empty frames emanating sinister, dark energy. A cold, ominous aura filled the air. Peppa saw inside one of the frames a dark abyss that was swallowing everything around it. Suddenly, a sinister voice emerged from the abyss. You won't be able to save them. All worlds will vanish forever. The paintings are portals to other worlds. A dark creature has stolen them to trap these worlds in eternal darkness. The glowing orbs are the spirits of the paintings, trying to resist, but without help, their fate is sealed. To restore the paintings, she needs to find an ancient magical crystal hidden in the abandoned library of the house. She heard a quiet whisper behind her back. It was her mother. Her eyes turned bright red. Suddenly, a sinister mist began to emanate from her body. She spoke in a foreign voice. You came too late. Now I will remain this monster forever. The monster grabbed her by the arm and pulled her into the darkness. The glowing orb tried to help her, but it was already too late. The monster turned her into a victim of eternal darkness. Now he roams through the house, hunting for new victims. His hideous face has become a symbol of evil's ultimate victory over good. The entire house is shrouded in darkness. The paintings have disappeared forever. The glowing orbs have finally gone out, and the monster wanders through the house or hides in dark corners, waiting for new victims.